Welcome to the show, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are just joining us, our first featured interview of the festival is with Anthony Northrup, who is the fellow up there. And Anthony, among other things, runs a popular Stephen King fan page on Facebook called ATK, All Things King. He is also the recent published author of Stephen King, Dollar Baby, the book, as you can see right there, which is a massive book, a massive undertaking of interviews and essays and all sorts of really great things that Anthony's been able to collect. It's available through Bear Media. Is that the publisher?
Bear Manor Media Publishing, or at Amazon.
Yes, and I got my copy off of Amazon for sure, as well as a digital download that you can get as well. It's a fantastic resource, and if you're a Stephen King fan, this is definitely a book that you want to pick up. And then we have Daphne and Sebastien, who are part of the team and sort of the driving force behind King on Screen, which is a new documentary about Stephen King and specifically adaptations of Stephen King's work into film. We're going to play their trailer a little bit later so that you can see exactly what it is that they're up to, but they have some amazing people already interviewed in this documentary, which we're going to talk about as well. And one of the reasons why we wanted to bring these folks on, I mean, obviously Anthony is one of our co-hosts, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to talk a little bit about the work that he's doing. But, you know, for those of us who are Dollar Baby filmmakers, it's so amazing to be able to connect with and be supported by people who aren't necessarily making Dollar Babies themselves, but have such an unbridled interest in Stephen King and his works that they've really latched on to the whole concept of the Dollar Baby and have been so supportive in promoting the work that all of these filmmakers are doing, as well as sort of looking at it through their own lens and as Stephen King fans in general, and sort of seeing where the Dollar Baby deal fits in with that. So I wondered if maybe I'll start, Anthony, with you. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are, how you got involved in the Stephen King shared universe, and what ultimately led you up to writing this book.
How much time do you have? No, I'm just kidding.
28 minutes.
Share.
I'll give you the 60-second story here. Like we were talking earlier, I was a King fan back in 1980, 9 years old, when I saw The Shining for the first time. I was more into King's movies than I was in his books at that time growing up. It was in 1986 when Stand By Me came out is when I took notice of his writing. I went out and bought the book right away because it really touched me that way. And then when Pet Sematary came out, which scared the crap out of me, I went out and got that book, and that is the beginning of the fandom. From that point on, I started buying the books, buying the movies, building a huge collection, which is outrageous now. And so that's what started all that. In regards to the book, I write for the local paper, the Tri-County Sun. And in 2013, I was doing celebrity interviews, film reviews, and book reviews for the paper. And at that time, I was kind of doing my Stephen King scholar years, as I put it. I was studying his works and breaking them down and what is he really trying to say and things like that. So I was reading tons of Stephen Spignesi books, in particular the Stephen King Encyclopedia by Stephen Spignesi, which is the holy grail as far as I'm concerned. And in that, he talks about dollar babies. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this and I'm like, what's a dollar baby? And not too long right after that, I saw Billy Hansen, the filmmaker who directed Survivor Type, which will be on our fest on Sunday. And he was commenting or posting something on Facebook. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to reach out. So I introduced myself. We talked a little bit, and he let me interview him and review his movie. And we got along, and he liked what he saw. And he started connecting me to his Dollar Baby friends. And from 2013, it just kind of snowballed. He was getting all these interviews and reviews from all these different Dollar Babies from all around the world. But what's really cool is in 2014, I hosted the Stephen King Dollar Baby Film Fest at Crypticon HorrorCon in Minnesota, where I hosted and we played movies for 3 days, and it was a great time. And they had such a great time, they invited me back the next year. So in 2015, we did it again, but this time was a much bigger crowd, a lot more movies involved, and it was just a lot of fun. And so from that point on, from 2013, when I first met Billy, all the way up until last year, I had enough material to write a book. And through some very great writer friends of mine, they encouraged me and said, "Hey, you need to write a book. You need to get the world to know about this stuff." And that's how it all came about.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, and then so we have you, Anthony, who've written a book about the filmmakers that are adapting King's work. And now we have Daphne and Sebastien, who are actually making a film about people who are adapting King's work to film. Yeah. So would you mind, Daphne and Sebastien, introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us a little bit about how you came to be where you are in the King adjacent universe?
Okay. Do you want to start?
Yeah, if you want to. So I'm Sebastien Cruz. I am the producer of the movie, and you are...
Yeah, the director.
And she is the director of the movie. She's Daphne Baiwir. And we worked together like for 10 past years, making movies, short films, and then documentaries. And I would say that Daphne is the person that brought me into the Stephen King universe. I wasn't very familiar with it a few years ago, but she kept talking to me about Stephen King, about the books he wrote. She said, you should read that, you should read this. And as many people, I was familiar with King because of the movies, you know. Who like movies and don't know The Shining? Who like movies and don't know Shawshank Redemption, you know? So everybody, without being a Stephen King fan, is some kind of Stephen King fan without knowing it, you know. And I started to become a Stephen King fan myself due to Daphne.
That's fantastic. And Daphne, how about you?
So the first time I discovered Stephen King, it's a kind of funny story. I was 10 and I was asking my father for reading something really scary, asking him always, what can I read? I want to have this feeling, you know? And sometimes, one time we went in the little town where I lived, and he found me a copy of The Shining. And I read it, I think, in 2 or 3 days, actually. And the funny thing is that my father at the time was working a night shift in a hotel. And we spent the holiday season. The hotel was completely shut down, and we spent Christmas just our free. And it was quite creepy, I must say.
You basically were living The Shining, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
and that's so, the first time I discovered him. Yeah.
Yeah. Just so that our viewers are aware, Daphne, you're from Belgium originally. Is that correct? And are you living in France now? Are you still based out of Belgium, or is it France that you live in now?
I live in France, but I'm always in Belgium. Actually, I directed almost all my movies in Belgium.
Fantastic. And well, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that it speaks to the very international reach of somebody like Stephen King. You know, we those of us in North America tend to sort of myopically kind of look at North America. And of course, he's an incredibly popular author and in English. And I just wonder, when you were reading your first Stephen King novels, were you reading translations or were you reading in English?
Well, I was 10, so I was reading in French most of the time. But as I grew up, I started to read in English because it's much better. And with the translation, I think we lost a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine that you probably would. Again, it's kind of like in a way, one of the reasons I like that is because, the Beatles, for example, back in the '60s when they were producing a lot of English music that was going all through the world, a lot of people actually credit them with the spread of English throughout a number of places in the world. And I would wonder maybe if we could also say the same thing about Stephen King, because obviously there are all of these amazing translations that are out there. But if it's encouraging people to go directly to the source and try to read his writing exactly the way that he wanted it to be, that probably has helped a lot of people throughout Europe and the rest of the world connect with English a little bit more.
Yeah, so we should ask the translator to continue make bad translation, So it's a great thing for English language.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to come back and watch your trailer in just a moment here, but I just wanted to go back to Anthony for a second here. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about the book and how that specifically came about. Like you have a huge, a very exhaustive collection of interviews that you've done, as well as some essays that you've put together. Can you tell us a little bit about what your selection process was in how you wanted to put that book together?
Sure. Okay, so like I was saying before, that from 2013 is when I first started getting all these interviews and reviews. So I was collecting them and collecting them. By 2020, last year, I had enough for a book. And when the book deal went through, I wanted to do more than just interviews and reviews. If I was going to do it, I wanted to go all the way. I wanted to go feet first. I wanted to pull the curtain back. I wanted the world to see this world of dollar babies that has been so limited in itself, because like you were saying, unless you could see these films at Film Fest all these years since 1977, basically the general public was not going to see these movies. So I wanted to bring the book version of that to the world, and like I said, pull the curtain back. So I did more than just interviews and reviews. The book is packed with fun facts, trivia, a lot of personal stories, pictures, art from Glenn Chadbourne. We all know him and his King works. And then, like you said, essays. And the essays are some contributors like Mick Garris, Tommy McLaughlin, fans, a whole bunch of great people of essays in there of their experience of their filming their movie or how King influenced them, their story, all sorts of good things. It's just, it's just a great book that is just packed with everything a Stephen King fan needs to know about the Dollar Baby universe and world. And I'm very proud of it.
Well, we did get a tweet from Germany earlier today where someone was like going to tweet along and read along, and they had a picture of your book on their Kindle. And I sent it to you, and that's really cool.
I got to say, I saw that, and that's one of the things that this has been a roller coaster ride for me since the book came out on January 19th, and I did choose that date for a reason. Dark Tower fans will know that number. And so since then, it has been a roller coaster ride and very surreal. But what the thing that really gets me the most is the feedback from people from all around the world. I get pictures from Russia, Spain, Germany, France, all around the world. People sending pictures of them holding my book. And it just really, it's surreal. It's just so blessed and very humbling. And I'm just so glad I made people a lot of happy with this book.
Can I ask another question from Twitter to take over for a couple minutes? This is from desert_rat713. If you're taking questions for Tony, I would like to know from his interviews, how many people are fitting their Dollar Baby films around their life and how many are making their Dollar Baby films their whole life?
Wow.
It was pretty deep, right?
That's a good question. The Dollar Babies themselves, there's a section in the book where I call Where Are They Now? And it's what happened to these Dollar Babies after I interviewed them and after their movie was released. Some were from a year ago, some were from 10 years ago. What happened to those people? And some of those Dollar Babies went on to big films, like James Douglas. And some people went on to other forms of entertainment, or some of them just went back to their old, their regular lives, So a lot of people, either made a career from it and their movie springboard to them to, the next level. Some people took a different path. So lot of different endings to their story, so to speak.
Excellent. I just wanted to come back to Daphne and Sebastien too, because I saw your eyes light up at the same time mine did when Tony mentioned Mick Garris. And I still think he holds the record probably as the director who has adapted the most Stephen King stories. He's done some amazing work for sure. I wondered if the fellows in our booth could maybe queue up the trailer for Daphne and Sebastian's film. I'd like our viewing audience to see some of the people that you've had an opportunity already to interview, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about who you've yet to show us. Matt, can we show that?
Stephen King is a master storyteller. I think you'd have to grow up under a rock if you didn't know who Mr. King was and his work.
He's an extraordinary writer. He's sort of like the Charles Dickens of the 20th and 21st century.
Most of his stories are so vivid that they just translate well to film.
Christine was such a good film, and Carrie was such a good film.
From It to The Shining, the David Cronenberg Dead Zone,
Cujo,
Stand By Me,
Shawshank Redemption.
As long as he keeps on writing, there will be films made of his books, because he creates worlds and he creates atmospheres that I think is very attractive to filmmakers.
I think the thing that works about King, people adapting his work into film, is, again, his ability to burrow under the skin of characters, to really examine the darkness of humanity in such a unique, murky, funny, complex way.
Adaptation is complicated because very bold choices have to be made. There's no way you can translate 600 pages of a book into a screenplay and keep everything.
You want to be slavishly faithful to the source material, but at the same time still have them make sense within the context of motion picture.
And to hear Mr. King say, wow, what an ending, I wish I would have thought of that. You have to applaud whoever came up with that ending.
And we were going to have a call with Mr. King, and I said, what do you think I should say first? I think I'm going to tell him how much I love The Shining. And he said, I wouldn't do that because he thinks it's a total piece of shit.
I think the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of The Shining is fantastic. Deep down, the essence of that movie is so Stephen King. It's not like Stanley Kubrick ejected Stephen King. I think he just kind of absorbed it into his world vision and then made something that is a beautiful amalgam of the two and really captures the essence of the book.
Did you know Stephen King gives permission to adapt his movies to students for $1? That is just amazing. I don't know of any other author that does anything like that.
King allows for a lot of engagement. Art is knowing what to leave out. Leave out something, and then the reader adds that, and now I get to make my own movie. That's why I think King is great.
That's the legend of Stephen King.
All right, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yes. Fantastic work on that trailer, and your Kickstarter campaign just started up yesterday, I believe. Was yesterday the first day of it? So obviously you've got some amazing people that you've already spoken to and that you're going to be talking to throughout the course of this. Tell us a little bit about how this project came to be.
Well, I've always been interested study and have a look on the interaction between books and fiction and movies, because it's most of the movies that are made are adapted from books, actually. And it's interesting to see how the filmmakers are working with the author in a way. And I think Stephen King is the perfect example of how this magic can happen, actually. And I was so badly wanted to make a documentary about Stephen King, and I thought, well, filmmakers have been so inspired by him and by his books, and you have so many generations that have worked on adaptations. And I thought it would be so great to have the opportunity to chat with the directors who adapted him and to understand a little bit the process of adapting a book, adapting King, of course.
Can I ask you guys a question? You said that have worked together in a capacity of making short films together. So is this like your first like big film together?
It's not like the first big film, because the last documentary we made was already about cinema, and we had the opportunity to talk with like very great people like Michael Douglas and Claude Lelouch and other great directors and producers and cinema related people. And it was in fact premiered at the Deauville Film Festival in France, which is like the second biggest festival in France, and it's all about American cinema. And but at the same time, the film become bigger and bigger through the years. So it's the biggest film we ever made. But yeah, it's progressive.
Yeah. And I must say, at first I thought about this documentary, talking with the directors and working on it. I had this idea to shoot a small fictional introduction at the beginning of the documentary with many references and Easter eggs, some kind of homage to Stephen King. And I thought, well, that could be great to have some King actors. I think I can say that, yeah, some emblematic actors, and to have all these references. And while shooting the trailer, I thought, well, we should give some kind of taste of what the introduction will look like.
Yeah, and another thing that is interesting that she mentioned references, but everything is a reference. The music, as you can see and hear, is composed by Nicholas Pike, and as you said earlier about Mick Garris, Nicholas Pike is the main composer of Mick Garris' adaptations. So even the music in the film will be a reference. And for the introduction, the actual introduction that we want to shoot in Maine, obviously, we will be working with a great crew, and we are still recruiting, but we are working with some people who already are emblematic in King universe, like Louis Sequeira, who did the costumes on the last version of it, like Nicholas Pike, like Keith Shaw, that who is doing the color grading on the movie. He worked actually on almost all Frank Darabont's films. So yeah, it's in this way, it's an adventure. It's an amazing adventure with amazing people, and it's very overwhelming.
I'm sure it is, but I totally love this the concept. And when we talked, you told me sort of your idea for the opening and how it would be loaded with Easter eggs. And then as I started to follow the information and saw exactly who you had working with you on the film, realizing that those Easter eggs were actually stretching out, into reality as well as the fictional universe that you're working within as well. And I thought that was so clever and such an interesting thing to do, which is why, by the way, to everybody out there, that I have contributed to the Kickstarter campaign, and all of you should too. If you have a little bit of spare coin, I would definitely recommend going on Kickstarter.com and searching up King on Screen. We'll tweet out some tweets. We'll tweet out some links a little bit later on because I think it's an amazing project. And one of the more amazing things is there's going to be a Frank Darabont interview in your documentary, which is quite a coup to be able to have landed. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about, or did you literally just phone him up and ask?
It's almost that. Almost that. You have to be patient and to be persistent. It takes time to get answers from this kind of personalities, because you have to go through different layers, from the agent, the assistant, and there are so much people just to arrive to the guy and to allow him to just say yes. It takes time and a lot of energy, but when the yes come, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is. And Anthony, you probably have a lot of experience that way too, because you've become quite good friends with Mick Garris over the years, I'm sure, and you've basically get an opportunity to interview people as you ask for them. Is that a similar experience that you've had, or have you just sort of figured out a way to just get to them directly? How has that come about for you?
Well, for me, when it comes to the Dollar Babies, I just reach out, or get referrals, kind of a thing, and just introduce myself and what I'm doing and what I've done and all that. And if they respond and they say, yes, I'm interested, we go from there. And some people didn't respond, and that's okay too. In regards to Mick, I got to share this. I've known Mick for 30 years. I used to live in California, and there was a store that I worked at where a lot of celebrities would come in, and he was one of them. And so we became friends, and over the years, now more than ever. And Frank Darabont was one of those customers that came in. If I can share this story real quick. He came in, this was before Shawshank, I should say. It was right before Shawshank and after he did the Young Indiana Jones Chronicle TV show, if you guys remember that. And we were talking about the Indiana Jones show for a while, and I told him that I collect the Indiana Jones comic books, but I was missing the first issue. And I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think he was listening or paying attention. And the next time he came in, he goes, "Hey, Tony, I got something for you." And he hands me the first issue of the Indiana Jones comic book, and I still have it today. So it was, yeah. And then after that, he did Shawshank. So,
Fantastic. Well, to both you, Anthony, and to Daphne and Sebastien, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little slice of the stuff that you're working on. And again, we will continue to tweet out links.
I've just found your Kickstarter, so I'm going to go put it to our followers on Twitter.
And definitely to the book as well, Anthony, okay. We will.
Yep.
I just wanted to say we are coming up very quickly on to Gray Matter at 5:30. So I'm just going to turn it over to Leah, and she'll let us know a little bit about Gray Matter. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, you guys.